It's bound to happen. I would not say the job is done, but I've been talking about this and kind of requesting this for a couple weeks now. A Mythic Zero worth reviewing on this channel. Now I get it, it's not a Mythic Plus technically. There's no timer, there's no like social requirements that if somebody leaves, it's funny, there's no awkward stuff happening, right? Typically, right? Is that correct? I don't know that it's correct because we have probably one of the best things you're going to see in a Mythic Zero. This is not exactly what I had in mind from reviewing my first Zero, but it is definitely worth taking a look at. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to see here is the chat, okay? The person who is submitting this, by the way, being PvP'd in the middle of the group forming process, which has to be probably like the most frustrating thing ever. Like you're trying to deal with this and you're getting fought by. But anyway, so this guy says it's set to normal. It needs to be set to mythic. Pay attention to what is there in the yellow screen. It's kind of blurry, but hopefully you can see what happens. The guy is trying to set the dungeon to mythic and he accidentally converts it to a raid. Watch it again because you can see the frames change. They're this type of frame and then the guy switches it to dungeon difficulty mythic, then converts the party to a raid for some reason, and now we have this. I personally don't know that this would bother me. I guess it would switch my raid frames too, but it's not like a deal breaker, I don't think. Like I don't know that it would actually matter. It's not going to stop you from doing anything, but yes, this guy clearly switched it from a normal dungeon to a mythic dungeon, then to a raid. Now we're still talking about this in the group. The warlock, who is going to become a legend on this channel, says set to mythic dungeon. Okay, so he did that. We saw him do that. It is appropriately mythic dungeon. You can see the dais right in front of us. The guy who's recording this says it's good now. It is now a mythic dungeon. It's not a normal dungeon is what he means to say. So you're welcome to come in. The paladin says we are in mythic, and then the warlock says no, it's set to a raid. What does that have to do with it's a dungeon? We're not doing a raid. It doesn't matter if it's set to a raid. We got 5 people. We're inside a dungeon. The paladin, the group leader, says enter. The guy who's recording this thinks like, oh, he's just still stuck in the previous version, but you can actually tell he's outside right now, so that's not the case. He says go out and back in. We're just missing the lock, which of course, because that's the guy who says he's not coming in because it's in a raid. This paladin says are in mythic. Warlock still says got to set to mythic dungeon. It's like, bro, what are you talking about? It is set, says the evoker. The paladin again confirms is mythic. Yes, this is a mythic dungeon. We're good now. Evoker says if you are in normal, you will have to exit and come back in. At no point was that the problem. This guy's just super confused, but they're all gonna rally behind this. Still going on about this. He says this is set for a raid, even though he's literally standing in the dungeon with the 4 other people talking about this still. The tank, by the way, the guy's name is Arch Menenthil from Azralan. Kind of a badass name, kind of not at the same time, but anyway, he's gonna go on and pull as the warlock does this. Watch, this is really funny to me because watch, like they're running and you just see him turn around and he's like, no, this is a raid, bro. I'm not getting saved to this. I might need to get the bullion from this later. He's gonna actually walk out of the dungeon because seemingly he doesn't want it to be set to an actual raid group, even though they have 5 people in here. I don't know, maybe something else is going on because there's a little bit more to this, but the guy actually walks out of the dungeon and then leaves the party over it. What? Why? What's the problem? What is the actual issue here? Can somebody explain this to me? I could see it maybe as the healer, because if the healer is messing with his raid frames in the middle of the dungeon, like, yeah, okay, just change it back to a party. I don't think this is being communicated very clearly. The warlock keeps saying it's set to a raid, not a dungeon. When you hear that, it's like, what are you talking about? You can't raid a 5-man. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 30 people, only 5 can actually enter. So that guy's gonna leave. I mean, I don't know about other guys out there, but I imagine there's DPS a dime a dozen signing up for zeros. That guy just says, I don't care. I'm gonna walk out of the dungeon and leave it. But not done here. Now we're just gonna go on ahead with 4, really 3, because the guy is just stuck there. He's still talking about the shit. He says the warlock is left. Yes, that seems to be the case. He is left. Arch Menenthil, like this guy is living up to Arthas. He does not care. He's going to continue. He's a blood DK, right? Why would we stop? We can solo this. I honestly don't get why it's an issue regardless that the guy left though. The guy says wait. Just list the group again. Like, what are we waiting for? Just list the group again. By the time we get somebody, we'll be the first boss. He says we need other DPS. Like, does he think it's a Mythic Plus? Like, does he think that we now need to restart it because that guy left? I have no idea what's going on here. All this time has passed though, and the guy still has not just listed the dungeon again. Like, you're fighting all this trash. He doesn't list the dungeon. You're just fighting this trash, doing nothing here. He says, guys, go back and wait for other DPS. Like, It's like the Twilight Zone, dude. Why? Why would you do that? Just list the dungeon and invite the guy, and you'll be at the first boss, and he'll walk in the dungeon, and he'll save some time. You can't see it, it's under my webcam, but he's finally listed the group, and like we said, there's a dime a dozen. People are signing up like these left and right, probably can't get into groups like crazy. This guy says, can you help me with the summon, please? Yeah, maybe you can invite a warlock. Oh, no, okay, you invited another rep pally. So we now have 3 pallies in the group, and wait for it, watch this right here. He says raid question with an E. Rady, ratty, raid question mark. 6 players. Like, where is the 6th player? Is the warlock still in the group somewhere? Like, oh my god, what is even going on here? So I don't know if we can't see a player. Like, maybe he accidentally invited somebody when he tried to switch it. I don't really understand what's going on here. This guy joins, and like 5 seconds into being in the dungeon, he says, why are we in a raid group? Yet another person who seems to be really worried about that. I mean, I really don't understand what the actual issue is here. Like, okay, you can't do it with 6 players. So even if there's some magical 6 player somewhere, like, what do you think is happening here? Is this like a trick? Like, are they trying to trick you? Just join the group and do the dungeon. Who cares? Now, the guy whose group it is, yeah, he's gonna go ahead and say, GG, the people is retread. I don't know what that word is. No, so he can't even spell it right. Like, what? He goes, I really think that. You know, I believe you. After waiting some time, they just leave. The guy just leaves. He doesn't care to fill it again. It's a 0. You can always refill it. Like, I have no idea why you would leave. We honestly joked about this, like a disbanded 0. Like, it shouldn't exist. People are telling me that, like, if you're like multiple bosses in, nobody's going to want to join that dungeon in progress, which I'm a little suspect of, but I guess I understand why people would say that. But this, it's like you've assembled the entire group. You sat here for like 20 minutes, and now you're just going to leave after getting the tank and the healer in the key. I don't even understand that, why you would do that. I mean, it's just like a barrage of ridiculousness. And I think this is probably what 0s look like right now. So here is the plea. If you guys are out there running 0s, not just low keys, 0s, please press that record button. I am not above recording a 0, man. I think there's probably as much to learn and also laugh at in those dungeons as there is in any actual Mythic Plus. Obviously, we've talked a ton about this already, about how bottom end of the Mythic Plus dungeons have been cut off, and it is probably causing chaos for a lot of people. We may just very well have seen a couple of those people getting the chaos ensued on them in this footage right here. Tell me what you guys think about this. Is there like a legitimate gripe to the raid thing? I have no idea what's happening here, but it is really strange to see people actually disband a 0 when you could simply just keep refilling until somebody actually stays. That is the game. We are so deep in the Libra culture. Even dungeons that don't have requirements for people to stay and can be refilled are still ending up in this disband state. Thank you for watching. We will see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned because Monday's video is a banger. Like, this one's good. That one is so much better. Stay tuned.